for all American merchant mariners who served in World War II. And the rest of the public can purchase a bronze replica, but the original solid gold one will be kept in our museum, which is built right into the legislation. It's a pretty neat deal.
Yeah, cool. I heard some erroneous information where they said the medal was supposed to be available by the end of 2020.
Ain't gonna happen.
That's what I thought.
I think everything's gonna happen a little bit slower from now on.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Boy, the way I've got my...
Be careful. They got people checking to see if we're loyal or not now. So, oh boy. Just hopefully nobody shows up in their bathrobe.
I would hope not. That would be against the dean's instructions, right? We're supposed to appear professional. Although I'm not going to put on a tie. I draw a line. That would just be theater.
Josh, I love your background there.
That is original artwork in the American Merchant Marine Museum.
For some reason, I'm not able to put up any background. My computer's not letting me do it.
Huh. Well, one of my tricks is I use my own computer and my own camera instead of the cheesy computers the government gives us.
Got Cooper on here too.
Okay.
Just why my viewpoint looks a lot different from some of the others of you. Hi, Melinda.
Hey, Josh.
Emil Musin. Good to hear from you.
Name from the past.
Yeah, we should talk another time. So.
Is that one of the murals from our friend?
It's a painting that's in the museum.
Oh, okay.
It's a little Canadian Corvette escorting convoy that looks like a Liberty ship in the middle ground.
Yes, it does. Any update on the World War II medal?
The president signed the act on Friday the 13th. So it's going to happen. It'll take about 2 years for that medal to show up in the museum. And for everybody's information, this is the single gold medal being cast by the government for all American merchant mariners who served in World War II. And the rest of the public can purchase a bronze replica, but the original solid gold one will be kept in our museum, which is built right into the legislation. It's a pretty neat deal.
Yeah, cool. I heard some erroneous information where they said the medal was supposed to be available by the end of 2020.
Ain't gonna happen.
That's what I thought.
I think everything's gonna happen a little bit slower from now on.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Boy, the way I've got my screen set up, it looks like the title sequence to the Brady Bunch.
Very good.
So, okay, I have it as 1400 exactly, and I've been tasked with the dean's office in sharing my knowledge about using Blackboard's gradebook function, something I've been doing for over a decade, and I highly recommend this product. It makes my life easier for starters, right? But I will tell you, this is my first ever Zoom class. Be patient with me. If y'all could mute yourselves, except when you have something to say. And for the record, I am recording this because I know some of my colleagues wanted to watch this asynchronously, as they say. So that's the story there. Okay, so I think there is some really good pedagogical reasons to use Blackboard's gradebook function or another form of gradebook that the midshipmen can see. Why is that? Well, for starters, it's convenient. I teach mostly plebes, and I got to tell you, when it comes time to give those midterm grades or even final grades, it is a non-event. It's all been done by Blackboard, boom, boom, boom. It's ready to go. So no sweat, I don't get nasty calls from the registrar's office or anything, right? It does make my life easy. I also am a big fan of transparency, which makes the midshipmen feel more comfortable, right? If they can see their grades, they have a little power. I'm not hiding that grade book in my desk, locked up. They don't have to come see me. They can see it, and I think that empowers them to take charge. And I think they're happier whenever they have the ability to control their fate a little bit more, and they're a little bit more miserable when they cannot do that. So I think psychologically, it's very good for them. And we are in perilous psychological times. All of us are impacted by this incident. I know I have issues with concentrating sometimes. The midshipmen are going to have that too. So I think we really want to make them comfortable. Accuracy is another reason why we should be doing this. If I entered that grade wrong, that midshipman can check it at any time, and he can ping me, say, sir, could we discuss this? This isn't the grade that's written down on my exam. So we're going to get a higher degree of accuracy. And I think that's a good thing too, because it's litigious times, right? None of us wants to get sued, I think. I know I don't. Other reasons? Well, maybe I'm a little lazy. You know, I can set up this grade book and just recycle it from term to term to term. It makes my life easy, and it spits out, it calculates the final grade for me. Finally, I would mention that if that midshipman takes their computer to their mentor, they can open up this grade book and show it to them, and, you know, kick it around and discuss it. So there's really a lot to be said for doing business this way. But I think you're not here to hear me talk about the pedagogy so much as the how. So let me go to my Blackboard website, which should be right here. Not that one, not that one, not that one. Hold on one second. Yes, okay. So here is my home page, which I've taken the opportunity to dress up a little bit. Go to the control panel over here, which is where everything happens in Blackboard, really, and go to Full Grade Center. For the record, there are no grades here, so there's no FERPA violation or anything like that. I set up a lot of small grading events for the midshipmen. So if we scroll over, you can see there's a lot going on in this spreadsheet. But here we go. We've got the midshipmen username. What you can see, midshipmen are already checking into the Blackboard page for this course. A function I use a lot is I use the email button. If you hit everybody here, you see the little check marks. You can email everybody. I will warn you, though, that doesn't work so well if you're emailing attachments. You might want to do that in your regular email program. So let's unclick that. So one of the things I've done with this page is I've set up the running grade right after their last access. And the running grade is just that. It tells them exactly what their grade is at this moment in time. And a lot of midshipmen like this because it does give them that sense of control, or, hey, I did really great, or, oh boy, maybe I better try a little harder. And then I set up all the individual events, you know, out to one side there. So I think what makes this gradebook function work is the idea of categories. So you can see I've got quiz 01 here. All the quizzes are in a category. And if we click this little caret here, we can go to edit column information. And that tells you a little bit about that column. Like, you have to name it. The column name is what's going to appear in the column. I'm not sure. You don't have to provide a grade center name. So what kind of grade is it? It's a quiz, so it's a percentage. I don't need a secondary display. The category is quiz. And I've got it set up so I could have 2 quizzes or 100 quizzes. It's still going to be, you know, 10% of their final grade, no matter how many quizzes there are. And you can adjust that as well. So, goodness, when did I create that date? I created that date on August 1st, 2006. That was a long time. So you see, I really am lazy. I recycle and recycle and recycle. So I think that's a pretty good idea of the categories. Now, the other important thing to know is managing your grading schemas. And maybe your department has one, or maybe this course has a particular schema. But if you go to the grading schemas button and then click here on letter and go to edit, okay, so this allows me to control what an A is, what a D is, and one of the things I found I had to go in here and change specifically was I changed a 0 from giving them a grade of 55, which is the default in Blackboard. I changed that to a 0. If you know, that makes it a much more drastic event if you fail something. I don't like using F's, but you know, sometimes that's what you got to do. So I think the schemas are very important to set up. And like I said, that information I think we're supposed to have in our syllabi. Is that correct? Nod your head. Yes. Chad says yes. Okay, he nods his head. Good. All right. So that's cancel that. Let's see. How do I move this? And go back to the full grade center. Okay, so create calculated columns. This is one of the more important things you can do. I use the weighted column, which gives them their final grade. Let's go into that. I'm a humanities professor. I'm not especially sophisticated mathematically. So here's what I would do. So I go into column name, and it might be, quiz 3. I don't need a grade center name. It's a quiz, so it's going to be a percentage. And I want to include that in the weighted grade. So probably the best way to do that, you can do that by individual columns, or you can do it by categories. I tend to do it by categories, and this dialog box here has a list of all the categories. which you can invent, by the way. You don't have to take just their categories. You can invent your own. And we make sure that quiz is in there. And I think I said quizzes are 10% of everybody's grade. I'm not interested in dropping grades. All the quizzes are equally valuable in my course. And then I go submit. And it's going to not like that because it wants 100%, right? So I add other categories, which will be blog, for example. So I have highlighted blog. You hit the little caret here. Boom, it shows up over on the top of the list. Now I'm up to 20%. I've got essays. Oops, what have I done? I've blanked everything out. Essays are 30%, and so on, right? You guys can play with that on your own. But gee, you know, once it's set up, it's good to go, and you really don't have to worry about it. I'm going to cancel that page so it doesn't mess up my grade book. So one of the things you can also do is a total column, which I don't play with much. Let me go back to the weighted column here to make sure. Yeah, that's how you include everything there. Let me cancel out of there. Now, manage is a nice button too. You can arrange grading periods. I don't. Grading schemas. Categories is the important thing. Let's go back to categories. But this isn't the place where you fiddle with the categories. It just sort of gives you your categories and exactly which columns are in each one. Go back to column organization is something that I use a fair amount. And one of the things you can do with this is you can, in this, if you click on the four-way arrow here, you can actually move it up or down, and that will change its placement within the spreadsheet. So this is where you do that sort of thing. And let's see, what else have I got here? Yeah, running grade I like to have early on. You know, I could have that at the end if I wanted. And that's fine too. That's all up for you to manage. I'm gonna cancel that so I don't mess up everything. Leave. Row visibility. Maybe you don't want people to see certain things or certain people blocked out for some reason. You can certainly do that. I don't see any reason to do it. What else? Let's get into a column and see what it does. You can view grade history. You can edit the column information. Again, that's where it's named, the percentage. It's the category, which again, I think is absolutely crucial. That's good to do. And gee, that's really sort of all I do. It takes a little while to play with it, but you can add an infinite number of columns. You can name them whatever you want. You can put them into categories and slice and dice those different ways. I just think it's a great tool, and the midshipmen have actually come up almost every term and said, boy, we really appreciate that we get the grades so quickly, right? As soon as they're entered, boom, they have access to them, and they love to have that sense of control. So I think it's a winner. If you have any questions, feel free to email me or ask me now. Does anybody, okay, Cindy Robson?
Hey, Josh, this is Richard Crook.
Oops. Okay, Richard, go ahead. Then we'll get Cindy.
Okay, I'm sorry. Two things. One, can you do an average grade of a quiz across the section? And number two, how do you archive this so that you have access to it in the future?
Okay, so those are both great questions. You can go to reports, which will create a report, which will create essentially a page for each midshipman. So I've got 18 midshipmen in this section. I'm going to get 18, 8.5 by 11 sheets with a report on each one. Or there is a way to save it as a spreadsheet as well. And that's how I usually archive this. So it can be done. Let's see, view grade history. No, not so much. Let's go back. But what you can do within each grade is you can get column statistics, and there are other ways to get statistics too. So you can tell who got what, or better yet, the names aren't attached, right? So you can see on the screen now the grade distribution. You can tell how many people got A's. And I always tell the midshipmen, hey, if 2 of you got A's, gee, it must have been a reasonable assignment. So I often share this information with them, but usually not in the spreadsheet form. There is a way to do that. Does that answer your question?
Yes, that's what I need as far as STCW reporting. But the other thing is, I noticed that previous terms, the Blackboards that Diane develops are no longer accessible. So how would I archive this so I would be able to access, get to the information in later terms?
So there is a way to download this as a spreadsheet. Now, you're going to make me think about this, aren't you? I think it's create report. Here we go. There are no grades to report right now, but this will give you all the information. It can be all columns, select columns, you name it, and even a signature line, right? And a date. So that's one way to archive it. There used to be a way to do this as a a spreadsheet, but I don't see that right now. But that's probably just because you put me on the spot.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just making sure that I can utilize it and still get back to all the information.
Yes. Yeah. I don't think it's a problem. Maybe even this work offline tab over here where you download what? Let's see what happens. Full grade center. Boom. There you go. How's that?
That seems to work.
Yeah, I think that does the job.
All right, Josh. Thank you very much.
Sure. Cindy Robson, you had a question for me. Cindy, you there? Okay, no Cindy. Anybody else have any questions?
Hey, sir, it's on David Brew. I think I missed it. How can you delete a column? I put one in there that I don't want.
So if you go to that column and click on the little caret, it should say at the very bottom of the dialog box, delete column.
Okay.
And that should do the trick, David. Now
Thank you.
Now I see we have Cindy back. So.
Okay, I was trying to. It says you can push the space bar to talk. I guess it didn't work. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Okay, good. First, to download the spreadsheet, and you actually showed where you go work offline and then download, and it all goes into an Excel spreadsheet, including the headings of all of your columns. And then what I always do for STCW is I save that. So that seems to work for me really well for STCW. But my question that I had for you is my students always see a running total. And a lot of times it's a huge number because I recycle the courses like you do. And so sometimes there's columns I don't use. So they'll see that they've got 436 points out of 790. And so then they try to equate that with the grade. And so my question is, do you know where that comes from, or do you know how to get rid of it? Because I've tried to go into column management and I can never figure out how to get rid of it.
It's a terrific question because I have the same issue, and the midshipmen often come to me. I don't see that running total column, and I think where that number comes from, Cindy, is if we go to a column and we go to edit column information, and we might need a mathematician to help us here. But I think the culprit is this points possible box,
Yes.
which I always, as a default, put 100. The little orange asterisk indicates it must be there, but I have
Right.
no clue why.
And it totals, even if you are, for example, if I don't give the quiz on, I don't know, mid-latitude sailing, so so I hide that column from the students, but it still uses it in the total tally. And I can't figure out, I can't see what they're seeing unless I put myself in as a student, which I actually do. But I can't figure out how to get rid of it. And like I said, it always confuses them. So maybe it's a question.
The column should be invisible, and let's see. So column information, allows you in the options part to include this column in grade center calculations, yes or no. Show this column students, yes or no. Show statistics, average and median for this column, yes or no. So I think, that's where you could take care of that. But
well, that hides the column from the students, but it doesn't hide the number as part of their running total. And you can't, like I said, I can't see it, I can't delete it. The other way to hide from the students is just if you go back to the first screen, where you've got the list, go back to where the list of like all the quizzes are. And if you just click on a quiz, I don't know if you can see my arrow, but click on one there, click, and then see where it says hide from students, and you click it on. That's the same way as hiding it under edit mode, but it doesn't take away the number from the running. Anyway, it just confuses the students, and I was just wondering if you knew how to get rid of that.
Sure, not necessarily. There is this hide from instructor view thing, and there is a way to see which columns are visible and which ones aren't. If you go to the column organization, it'll have it in sort of italics, and grayed out, like student ID is hidden.
Right, I use that actually a lot, but see where it says points possible on the very right hand at the bottom?
Yes.
So I think it's tallying that, but I just, like I said, it just confuses students. So
I'm sorry. I wish I had a better answer for you.
I can also speak to when you create a column under total. I actually used that for the first time this past term. So if, let's say, you give 100 homework assignments, and not 100, 10, and each one is worth 10 points. Let's say you give them 10 points. If they turn it in on time. So they have a possibility of making 100 points on homework. And so you make it as a total column. So for example, if they skip homework 3, then their homework would be a 90 instead of a homework. So instead of averaging all the grades, it gives you a tally of how much they turned in. So I just use that.
Interesting. What I do is I don't give makeup quizzes because it's so hard to connect with students at the academy. So a grade might appear as these 2 dashes here, and that means that it's not part of the grade, and it won't cause a problem for them, except mathematically it makes the few remaining quizzes they have left more valuable. So you don't want to see a lot of people missing a lot of quizzes, because for the few they do show up for something, theoretically, I mean, they all show up, right? It's going to emphasize the value of those remaining quizzes. So yeah, lots of things to be done. Are there any other questions for me? So how many people are left? There are 11 of us, I guess. Hey, that's really all I have to say. I hope the conversation was useful. Drop me an email, smithj@usmma.edu, and I'll be glad to try to help you. And I'm going to try and post this online, since I have recorded it as well. Okay?
Thank you, Josh.
Josh,
Thank you,
one
folks.
question.
Thank you for doing this.
Bye now.
Josh,
Yes.
I had one question. So when a student comes into Blackboard, they're only seeing their grades.
Oh, yes. Yeah, they're only seeing their grades. Yeah. There's absolutely no way they can see anybody else's grades.
Right, so it's not a PII issue that they're seeing the whole list for that particular quiz or the running grade total.
No, not a problem. I've never had an issue in over 10 years with that. I think that one's built right in.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks.
Hey, Josh, I got a question.
Okay.
Over on the left where you have your control panel, I noticed your buttons were black. How do you change that? I know it's a simple thing.
So if you go down to teaching style, Ched, and click on that, you will see, and scroll down, you'll see all these different styles. You can do it as buttons or as text. They've got a button library you can see there with all these different colors. So
what are you in the course tools or?
So it's, yeah, under, what is this? Customization, teaching style.
Let me see what you're, let me watch you what you're doing here. That's
Okay.
customization, okay.
So you go to teaching style, this screen shows up, and it really isn't much use till you scroll down. Like, you can set your entry point. I want to do homepage, but you can do it a whole bunch of other places too if you want. You've got all these themes, just like PowerPoint has themes.
Right, okay.
And then buttons, if I wanted blue buttons, I could have blue buttons, red buttons, all sorts of colors. And this is also where you can set in a banner if you like.
Perfect.
And I've got, you know, that's the Leviathan back in the 20s and 30s there in that picture. So you can do anything you like.
Okay, that was quite simple. Okay. I appreciate that.
Love to hear that. Anybody else?
Yeah, there's too bad, Josh, there's no mechanism to export from Blackboard into CAMS, right? That would be nice if they could create that.
Yeah, there isn't. That would be nice. But I think the closer we get to government computer programs like CAMS, the worse things are gonna get. Better to keep them separate. This is a good commercial product, unsullied by the federal government's regulations, if you see what I mean.
Right, but I mean, that way, you know, you could push all the faculty to, you know, to go to Blackboard. And at the end of the day, where you're creating all this, you don't have to then separately take that and then put it into CAMS. There should be some way to just export or have some kind of GUI where it just populates it in there and there's no potential for any error.
Yeah, no, I agree, and it's that would be great. Anybody else?
Thank you very much.
Okay, you're entirely welcome. We'll see you folks around. Take care.
Have a good weekend.
All right.
Over now.
You too. Bye now.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Yeah.
Josh, thanks.